I look into my foggy crystal ball in the future of computing science education almost 30 years ago. Um, well, more than 30 years ago, I overwhelmingly see the depressing picture of business as usual. Universities will continue to lack the courage to teach hard science. They will continue to misguide students, and each next stage of infantilization of the curriculum will be hailed as educational progress. That is just so cool to um, read from a computer science professor talking about that. What is infantilization, Catherine?
It's sort of like a dumbing down of the curriculum. So treating people like they're infants.
Oh,
So it's kind of like each next stage of infantilization of the curriculum. Yeah. So basically, it's the process of creating curriculum that looks like it's doing something totally new and different, but in fact, it's creating something that's quite simple. But you just make it look super fancy, which is why they can say, "Oh, we've made progress. We've done something innovative." And really, it's not. It's the same old thing. Business as usual. It's the status quo. It just looks and is packaged a little different.
I see that a ton in ed tech developments. I mean, some ed tech for sure is helpful, especially for students like me who really struggle with reading. Like I prefer like online stuff, but ultimately, like we've discussed in so many other meetings, real change happens when classroom sizes are smaller. Real change happens when you can have generative discourse on what learning is.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, to this man's point, he also is talking about how we actually need, like, we need to think about ways that we can no longer rely on what happened, like what worked before. We have to start thinking about the future. Like, how do we break beyond the constraints of what has already been done? And how do we start anticipating future problems and developing the methodologies that are going to help us to solve future problems? And not like, stupid problems, but like ones that are really grounded in people's and communities' lived experiences that can really actually transform society for the better, for the public good. And I think this is where it gets a little tricky, because some people think like, oh, technology is good. Like technology is a public good. Technology is going to save the world. But, with I guess the question is, what kind of a world does the rise in technology create? What kinds of connections between people does it create? What kinds of relationships does it create? How does it shape the ways that we think about each other and work with each other and try to make a difference in the world? And who does this affect the most, and in what ways?
Yeah, who does it benefit the most? Who does it harm the most? Who does it
Right.
separate? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. I mean, 32 years ago, that paper he wrote to the dean in the department,